Hi all. You're seeing this video instead of our regular class because I have contracted coronavirus and I don't want to get all of you guys sick. So for the next two classes, this is how we're going to do class. I'm going to send you guys out a video covering all of the sort of lecture parts of class, and then you're going to have some kind of assignment that you will do on your own. First of all, we're going to go through the feedback for your papers. At the moment, I have 5 of you guys left that turn your papers in on time and that turn them in correctly. And hopefully I can get through those by the end of the day. If you didn't do either one of those things, then you're probably just going to have to wait until I'm done with some of the other classes. But anyway, this is on your screen now. You can see instructions for how to find the feedback that I gave you on your paper. So to review your feedback, go to Grades in Canvas for our class. On the left, open the second draft and then click View Feedback on the top right. Go ahead and pause the video now and look through all of your feedback. And see what it is that I told you guys to do. You should see several little comments throughout your paper along the side here. And then at the very bottom, or maybe in the text box, you'll see a large comment telling you main things to focus on and work on. Go ahead and look through that so that you know which parts of the next part of this video to pay attention to, and then when you come back, we will go through some of the common mistakes that I saw. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to pause the video right now. Alright. Hopefully that gave you enough time. Alright, so assuming you've looked over your comments already, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through some of the main things that I saw happening over and over again, and we can use this to sort of instruct you on what you need to do in order to make corrections to your paper. I didn't make a lot of notes about this, but there were a lot of MLA format issues. And so, first thing I'm going to do is go through how to put a paper in MLA format. There's 2 different ways you can do it. The hard way to do it is to change all of these settings yourself in Microsoft Word. First of all, you have to change the font to Times New Roman. 12-point font. Change the paragraph spacing to double spaced, and then this is after a paragraph how much space is going to be there. You want to get rid of all of that so that all of it is uniform. And now every MLA format paper needs to have all of the following parts. First, you're going to have your last name and page number in the top right, which is insert page number, and you're going to go top of page, right side. That'll put the page number in there, and now you're just going to put your last name. Alright. Now, you'll have your heading, your standard MLA heading. That's your name, my name, our section number, and the date. Oops. Okay. Yeah, it fills it in for you if you do it right. Next, you need some kind of title. A lot of people just did literacy narrative, but try to make it about what your paper's about. Title should always be centered. Make sure to capitalize all of the main nouns and verbs and the first letter of your title. And then after that, justify everything to the left. Press Tab to indent your paragraphs, and you can get started writing. And everything should be double spaced now. So that's the hard way to do it. The easy way, you just go to New. There's all of these different templates in here that you can find. And we're just going to look up one for MLA. And the first one that pops up will be an example of an MLA paper. Just press Create. And yeah, everything is set up for us. All we have to do is go in and put in all of our own information. I already kind of showed you how to do this, so I'm not going to do all of it again. But yeah, just put in your name, your instructor name, course number, date, title. You probably don't have a subtitle, that's fine. And then delete all the rest of this and replace it with your own stuff. So in the future, we'll try to turn in everything in MLA format so that it's formatted correctly. Alright. I feel like I should be asking you guys if you have any questions, but I can't. Alright, so next thing, pro tip for telling any kind of story is that unless you have a really good reason to, make sure to put everything in order. A lot of these stories got kind of confusing because people were jumping around all over the place, and that's something that happens when we write. We'll tell a really short version of a story, and then a longer version of a story, and then a longer version of a story, and be all over the place with it, and that will confuse the hell out of your readers. So what you want to make sure you're doing is that you're beginning the story when it begins, and if you think of something to add to that earlier part, you just go back and add it there. You don't stream of consciousness put it in wherever it ends up being that you end up thinking of that. So yeah, there's a few people that had this issue. What you're gonna just have to do is go back and look through your paper and find, what sentences or paragraphs you had that needed to go in a different spot, and just move them around to make your paper more clear. Next part here. So, for most of these papers, pretty much all of these papers, what you needed to do is stick to past tense as your tense goes. But there was a lot of people that ended up jumping around to different kinds of tenses. So there's different kinds of past tense, and I sort of illustrated all of those here. Normal past tense, you would say, I walked, I ran, I drove, I visited, I learned, whatever. That's what, if you're putting everything in order in your story, then that's the only way that you should be describing things, is in normal past tense. Occasionally, you might go into past perfect or past continuous, which are these two. And if you say, a lot of times people mix up past tense and past perfect tense and just start putting had in front of everything. But if you put had, what that means is it's something that happened before the story. If you say, I had been, let's see, what's an example? I had been struggling with reading. Then that's something that happened before the story. That's a problem that existed before the story. If you said, I struggled reading the book, then that's something that's happening during the story. So you shouldn't use the word had very often. It's usually only something that's going to show up in the first part of your story and not a lot later on. And then past continuous is something that is happening when the story begins, or when this part of the story begins. I was walking to the store and I crossed the street. Was walking, past continuous. Crossed is past. So you're saying this is something that was happening and then this happened. And then past perfect continuous would be before the story. This is something that was happening all the time. I had been walking, to the store or whatever. So, yeah, try to avoid had and try to avoid putting was in front of your verbs if you can avoid it. I hope all this makes sense. Alright, so other issues with tense. Some of you guys were switching back and forth between past perfect and past. So, again, past tense is something that happened in the past. Past perfect is something that happened before something that happened in the past, generally before the story. Then there's present tense, and that's something that's happening now. If you want to write your whole story in present tense, that's fine, but it needs to all be in present tense, and most of the time what was happening is people were switching back and forth between past and present. So make sure it's all in the same tense at least. And then future and future perfect, you're never going to use those unless you're talking about, where you're going or something. Next, word salad. So this is something that I only commented on a couple of people's papers, but this is something you guys do whenever you run out of things to say, and you need to make your paper longer. I saw one example that was a story where somebody finished their story on the 3/4 of the way down the first page, and then the rest of the paper was word salad. It was all just one ending after another, where they were talking about how this affected their life or whatever. So, in this paper, the way to fix that, the way to avoid word salad, is to go back and add details to the parts that are already there. Tell us, some sensory information. Tell us little details about how your experience went or whatever. This isn't fun to write, and it takes forever, and you get a bad grade as a result. So don't do this. Don't do word salad. I know when you're doing it, and it doesn't make your paper good at all. Okay, so sentence structure problems. These are some examples of run-ons. When you have your sentences, you should have, one subject, one predicate, and maybe more than that, but you need to use commas and fanboys to connect it all together if you do that. What you can't have is a sentence like this. Today I took my car to the shop, it had a bad transmission. So, right here you would need some kind of punctuation. You could put a period, whatever is fine, but it can't just be, today I took my car, it can't just be two sentences crammed together. This is, let's see, it's the subject I. Yeah, subject I. I took, that's your subject and predicate. And then it had is your subject and predicate for the second part of the sentence. And you could put that together with a fanboys, but otherwise you just need to separate them somehow. You can't just have that all crammed together. My grandmother baked us cookies. They were chocolate with icing on top. Again, that needs something to separate it. Sentence sprawls. This is technically a complete sentence here. I think I might miss a comma here or there, but the point is, look how many fanboys and things like that are connecting all of this together. Today, I took my car to the shop because it had a bad transmission, but the mechanic said I needed to pay $2,000 and I did not have that much, so I started saving, and it took 6 weeks of riding the bus to make enough money to get my car fixed. So, generally, if you have a sentence that's 3 lines long, you're probably guilty of a sentence sprawl. This is where you have more than, like, let's say, more than 3 clauses in a sentence. If you're doing that, then people reading it are going to have a hard time reading it, and they're going to lose track of what's happening at the beginning of the sentence by the time they get to the end. This is a whole odyssey this person goes on in this sentence, right? So we need to break this up and make it into smaller parts. Brand transmission. Let's make one there. The mechanic said I needed to pay $2,000, and I did not have that much. Period. I started saving and took 6 weeks of riding the bus to make enough to get my car fixed. Yeah, there you go. Imagine, like, if you start getting out of breath trying to read a sentence, then it's probably a sprawl. Sentence comma splices. This is where you've just connected two different sentences but with a comma. You can't do that. You have to have either a fanboys there, or you have to make it into two sentences. And generally, it's just something where you need to make it into two sentences. It's easy to fix. All you do is replace your commas with a period. And then fragments. So there's three kinds of fragments. Every sentence that you write needs to have a subject, a predicate, and it needs to be a complete thought. So, So, if it doesn't have one of those, then it's a sentence fragment. My grandmother's chocolate cookies with icing. That's a fragment because it does not have a predicate. There's nothing happening in this sentence. It's just a statement of something that exists in the world. Baked us cookies with icing. So who baked us cookies with icing? Because we don't know that. This doesn't have a subject. You might think cookies is the subject, but it's just a noun. It's not the thing in the sentence that's doing something. Because my grandmother baked us cookies. This one has a subject and a predicate, but it does not have a complete thought because it's here. This means that if we have because my grandmother baked us cookies, we have to explain what happened as a result of grandma baking us cookies. Commas after introductory phrases. I saw this mistake a lot of times. And anytime you have just a word or a phrase or something like that at the very beginning of your sentence, that is something you could just take right out of the sentence and it wouldn't lose very much meaning. You need to put a comma after that. Soon, I started working at the bank. Oops. Sorry, guys. After that, I started working at the bank. So, after that needs a comma. However, the bank was closed. Because you could just take these out of there. You could say, I started working at the bank. The bank was closed. Either one of those, you could just remove these parts. So you just put a comma in front of it because it's expendable. Grammarly, I recommend downloading Grammarly for a lot of you guys. It's very good at finding small mistakes, and it will help you learn some of this stuff over time. It'll find all of the small punctuation and spelling errors that you might not notice that you're making, and if you have no spell check software on your computer, that is going to end up costing you in the long run. So make sure that you have something like that. But Grammarly is probably the best one. The free one is fine. But I saw people that weren't using it that had like 200 or 300 mistakes in their paper this time. I don't think it was at this school, though. Second person. Avoid saying you. If you say you, you're dropping into the second person and you're changing the person of your story. You can say I. Definitely, and everyone did, so that's fine. If you're later on you're going to be able to talk in the third person, then that's fine as well. But the only time you want to use second person is if you're writing like an instruction paper. So this is an example of that. I started drawing in 6th grade. You have to put a lot of practice into drawing to get good. Well, maybe I'm just a savant at drawing, right? It's not fair to say this. This isn't everyone. This is just yourself, right? If you're writing on your phone, make sure that you go back and put it through a computer first. Make sure you put it through Grammarly before you turn it in, because a lot of times if you're writing on your phone, it's not going to capitalize I's and stuff like that. And you end up with a sentence that looks like this. You end up with nothing but sentences that looks like this. So it's a little insulting, not gonna lie. Some of you guys had paragraphs that needed to be broken up a little bit. And so, if I said that you needed to have new paragraphs, generally you want to have anything that you're going to talk about for 4 or 5 sentences needs to be its own paragraph. If you went to school and you were scared, and then your teacher told you to stand up in front of the class and introduce yourself, and you cried, those need to be different paragraphs. Because that's different parts of the story. That's an emotionally different part of the story, and yeah, just make it into separate stuff. All right, I'm gonna take a short voice break, and then I'll explain this assignment that you will need to do. All right, guys. So you will have until at least next week on Monday to make corrections to these and turn in your final drafts. I will open those up today. If I didn't finish grading everyone's on time, then I will just extend that deadline a little bit, so don't worry. Alright, so you're going to have one little assignment that you'll have to do today after looking through all of that. And it looks like this. So, this is ethos, pathos, logos. You've heard of those before. You may have not heard of kairos before. I'll go through all of these really quickly, and then I'll tell you what you'll need to do. So, this is shifting gears to look to our next paper, which is going to be a rhetorical analysis paper, which will have you figuring out why a writer wrote something the way that they did. So, okay, so you've heard of these first 3 before. Ethos is it's 2 different things. It's either an appeal to ethics, or an appeal to someone's character. You could use, if you're making an argument, I need to back up. So these are all different kinds of arguments that you can make. Different ways to make an argument. And what makes them effective arguments. So, appeal to ethos is an argument that appeals to some kind of authority and says, that is why I'm right. I'm right because it says so in the Bible. I'm right because it says so in the Constitution. Those are appeals to ethics. Or I'm right because this guy with a PhD says that I'm right. Yeah, so some kind of authority. Somebody who would know better than we do. Pathos is appeal to empathy and compassion. A good example of pathos is when you see those commercials at 3 in the morning that are telling you to help the animals. Those are pathos appeals. Yeah, trying to get you to feel sorry for somebody, trying to get you angry, trying to get you sad, whatever. Those are appealing to your emotions. And then logos is appealing to logic. So working it out with math, explaining it step by step, deductive reasoning. Most really good arguments are going to be logos arguments. Kairos is different. Kairos is what makes an argument seem right, even if it might seem wrong later. So, for example, when I was much younger, there was an argument in this country about whether we should invade Iraq or not, but it was in the right place at the right time. It's post 9/11 America. It made it seem, like the thing to do, even though now it's like probably not something we would consider the thing to do. Another thing that would be right place at right time, though, would be like the I Have a Dream speech, where it was the right time in the country's history for that speech to happen. They were in the right place. It was, just the best of both worlds. And it doesn't have to be something that's wrong. It's just like what makes that argument meaningful. So, for these two questions, number one here, identify a time when someone used ethos, pathos, logos, or kairos arguments to try to get you to do something. Maybe your mother told you to take out the trash because she's your mother and she knows she's in charge, right? So that would be an ethos appeal. Maybe she told you to take out the trash because her back hurt. That would be a pathos appeal. Maybe she told you to take out the trash because it was your brother's turn last time and now it's your turn. That'd be a logos appeal. Kairos might be the trash can fell over and spilled everywhere and now just take it out, right? Number two, give an example of kairos that you have seen in the world. So an example of somebody being in the right place at the right time to have an argument or other kind of thing that became really popular and famous. Alright guys, you will have until the end of the day to turn these in, even if like the assignment page doesn't say so. You'll have until midnight. Alright, good luck.